I'm Amber Furman, and this is the Break Your Bullshit Box podcast. If you want comfort, this is not the place for you. If you're ready to understand what makes smart, capable, successful people, including you, keep repeating the same patterns, this show breaks down human behavior, drawn from real conversations and years of studying what makes people create change so that you can make better decisions, have better conversations, and get better results. So let's dig in and break the bullshit that's been running the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Break Your Bullshit Box podcast. I am, and I know I say this every single time, so right before I go to start to say I'm super excited for this guest, I realize I say it every time, and I really am excited for this guest. It's gonna be different than some of the things that you might have heard on the show before. And I want you to sit with this for just a minute as you listen to this conversation. Every company has a story to tell. And I want you to think about your story and the story that you have through your life, through your business, the reason that you might have started your business. Because the reality is it's not just a tagline, it's a belief system for everything that goes on in your business and in your life. And today's guest has built her entire career and her life around that belief. Gina Yager is the founder and director of GYC Vegas. It's a boutique PR and marketing agency right here in the Las Vegas Valley with over 20 years of experience in the PR game. She and her team have worked with everyone from scrappy startups to national corporations and global brands across industries like hospitality, healthcare, tech, real estate, gaming, and nonprofits. They have racked up multiple PRSA Pinnacle Awards, including Best in Show, and they've been recognized as one of the best PR firms in Las Vegas. Here's what I really want you to hear about Gina. She doesn't just run strategic PR agencies. She runs her life strategically. Every decision, every move, every next chapter is intentional, planned, and executed. And she'll be the first to tell you, I'm sure, that most people are winging it and wondering why they feel stuck, both in their business and in their life. That's exactly why I brought her in here today. She hosts her own podcast, Get Your Chat On with GYC Vegas, where she digs into conversations with business owners and industry leaders. So she knows a little bit about what it takes on both sides of the mic. I am super excited to bring her on. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
You are very welcome. Before we dig in, as you're listening to this episode, I really want you to think about the things in your life that you might not be aware of that are holding you back. If you or somebody that you know in the Las Vegas area are ready to learn and understand what you didn't know that you didn't know about success, what you didn't know that you didn't know about the way that you're showing up, the internal limiting beliefs that are holding you back, the Success Accelerator is an incredible opportunity to get some awareness about how you're showing up and how that's affecting your sales communication and leadership. If you're somebody who wants to dig into the growth of your business and you're willing to at least acknowledge just a little baby tiny bit that you might be the problem, this is an incredible opportunity for you. Head over to bootcamp.successdevelopmentsolutions.com, check out our upcoming dates, and we will get you to the success that you want to have in your life and business. This conversation with Gina is going to help you get there. Gina, yes. So PR, were you like sitting in your room as a kid going, man, I can't wait to be in PR when I grow up?
No, I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Really?
That's what I wanted to be.
See that. You're always so well put together every time I see you. So I can see that.
Thank you. Yeah, my grandparents were tailors from Sicily. And so I was always around them making their own patterns and making their own designs, and I was inspired by them. And then when it gets to real technical things, that's where I don't excel. So I realized that I'm a creative person, but I'm more of a business person than I am actually creating things with my hands.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then I was a marketing major in college. Well, first finance. That's what my parents did. Then I realized, again, technical, not good for me. So I realized, I could be creative in a marketing degree. But then when I was graduating from San Diego State, all the jobs for marketing were in sales.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't want to start in sales and then work my way all the way up to marketing. I want to just start doing marketing now. Well, I had a friend of my parents owned a PR firm. And so PR was one chapter in one book that I read in college. That was it, because PR is part of the communications department and not part of business. And so I had to learn from, working at this agency as a coordinator. What the heck is PR? What am I doing?
Don't you find that a little odd that in something that affects business so much that they don't teach it in the business part?
Right.
Of schools?
I really feel like it should intertwine with business, because it is part of communications. It works hand in hand with journalism. That's exactly who we're talking to. Our audience is consumers, but it's through journalism. We are pitching reporters to cover, our clients.
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes from. But at the same time, yes, you need it for business success.
I felt this way when I went to law school, that they taught me nothing about how to run a business. Nothing at all. And I feel like we could have a whole episode on the flaws and faults of the U.S. education system. And this is just one of them. I've always thought, though, that school's meant to get you to the next level of school. Right.
Right. Of course.
Educate elementary is to get you to high school into college, college into grad school into passing your licensing exams.
Right.
And then where do you go?
And then where do you go?
And
you have to learn from the people who are in the business that you get hired to work for.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, if we prioritized business conversations, because the amount of people I've talked to that are like, I never thought I'd own a business.
That's me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like, I remember opening my law firm. It's terrifying, actually. I remember opening my law firm, being so excited. I had the freedom I wanted. I had the control over my schedule I wanted. I sat down in my office and I wrote a brief that I was going to send to the district attorney in a case, and realized I didn't have stamps. I didn't have envelopes. I didn't have pens. Like, I had been so good at being an attorney that the admin stuff and the magic supply cabinets that had already been full at every other law firm I'd ever worked on, like, I was in control of all that now. And I feel like we need to talk about that more, because so many people are going to stumble into owning a business at some point in time in their life.
Yeah, that was me. I stumbled into it. I had no plans on opening up a company. I didn't want any part of it, but the company I was working for folded, and I had already been in PR in this market for 15 years. And I thought, and I knew everybody in town. I knew all the other PR firms. I knew in-house, like at the, tourism properties. And I just I couldn't picture myself going on the interview circuit and meeting up with all of those people. And they all knew that my firm had folded. So I felt a little bit embarrassed about it too. And so I was like, I don't want to work for any of these people. Maybe I'll just do my own thing. And so I thought I would just be a solopreneur. And then it blossomed into my 6-person agency.
That's amazing. One of the things I love about this conversation the most is I know there's somebody listening to this that thinks everybody else has it all figured out and they know what they were doing, and I'm behind the 8 ball and I'm opening this business and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to fail. And I just wish people could hear this more often, that none of us knew what the hell we were doing.
No, and there's still fear of failure all the time. I deal with it every day. I really do. We all do.
At least my perception of PR, and you can tell me I'm completely wrong because it's possible, is this idea of marketing and getting eyes on your business and creating awareness for what you do. Mm-hmm. And it takes that fear of failure, at least from my perception, to a whole new level, because you're no longer just hiding in the shadows of your business anymore.
Oh, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So how do we set ourselves up to be able to lean into that when we're basically inviting criticism from at least someone?
Telling your authentic story. That's what it's all about. It's really showing up. Audiences want transparency, especially now. No longer are people willing to engage with a business, purchase from a business, have a relationship, or collaborate if they don't know who you are. They're not just they don't want to just go off the advertising. They don't want to just go off the marketing. Who are the people behind the brand? Why did they start this business? How do they show up and care for their clients and their businesses? And so you have that authentic story to tell, and don't be scared to do that.
I think that's powerful. And I can relate to that. I was mentioning before we recorded that my brother just opened a golf simulator in Omaha. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he was telling me he was going to do this, I kept thinking, I know some golf simulator companies, like you could partner with them. He's like, no, this is a good company. I met the corporate offices when I went over there. And within 45 minutes of meeting them, I was all in on this brand. Like they're opening one here. So I do think that makes a lot of sense, that we're past the point where you can go online and have like a product brand without a human brand.
You have to be, if you have nothing to hide, then why be afraid that you're going to be exposed?
Where does the line of telling your story, being authentic, sharing your values get in the way of product success when somebody disagrees with you?
Yeah, I think focusing on your brand, focusing on the positive. You have to turn the narrative around, instead of, and this is, this is a common interview tactic too, is that when you're asked questions about something else, it's like, let me tell you what I do know. Let me tell you what we're talking about here, what the real conversation is. Instead of answering a question about something negative that's happening, let's talk about the positives.
I love that. I laugh, not because of your answer, because of, I can think of news interviews, I think of political interviews where you get done listening to the interview and you're like, I know nothing more than I knew before this interview. Yet somehow they avoided every landmine, and it's this like skill.
And I don't mean to say don't answer public questions when public questions happen like that. When your constituents or your consumers, your customers are asking, hey, I support you, but I don't like that you did this. You need to approach it head on as well and answer questions about, why you feel that is a fit for your brand, or that is a strong belief that you want to stand on. Explain where you're coming from.
That makes a lot of sense. I'll relate it to when I wrote my book. I remember deciding what was going to go in my book and what wasn't, and thinking, if I really want to talk about trauma and healing my trauma, I need to talk about everything. And then I stepped back and thought, like, are these hills I want to stand on? And that's what I tell my clients now is like, if it's not a hill you want to stand on, then don't talk about it. If you're not willing to be the public face of this issue and this topic. I mean, I'll talk about my desire not to have kids all the time. I'll talk about my story with anxiety and depression all the time. There are things I don't talk about, not because I haven't healed from them, but because I don't care to be the public face of those topics.
Yeah, understood.
So that makes sense. So for you, you opened your business 2017.
2017. Yep.
How long had you been in PR when you decided you were going to take the leap to...
I had been, that was 17 years.
Okay.
I started in 2000, just fresh out of college. And 17 years. Again, I didn't, had no plans on opening the business. I just thought I'd freelance for a little bit, or have a few small clients by myself. But I quickly discovered that after 15 years or 17 years, I guess, of leading teams and working in a very large team environment I started in LA for a couple of years at an agency there, and then moved here and was at an agency here for 15 years. And I quickly realized, oh my gosh, I need to collaborate with other people. I need other people around me. I can't do this by myself. Like, not because I can't physically do all the work, but, but that is a challenge too, is, having some assistance, but really people to bounce ideas off of and work as a team. And so that's how it started to grow, is, one kind of employee at a time. But I like keeping things small. I have no intention of competing with the large agencies in town. I like a small team. I like being involved in everything from, I run all the strategy and I oversee execution for all of our clients. And so I like being in that spot.
Yeah. I think we as adults, and I felt this when I opened my business, we as adults kind of forget how much of our social interaction in our life comes from our workspace.
Right.
And coworkers. And when I opened my business, and I, similar to you, thought, I got it all now. Like, I'm good. I realized, like, God, I haven't talked to another human being that wasn't a client in a long time. And
when we're working with, journalists, pitching story ideas or collaborating on different things, everything's done, computer to computer, not a lot, maybe sometimes a phone, but generally it's all email communications. And so you're not talking to a human being. You're not sharing ideas. You're not brainstorming in that way. And I found too, reason I joined the chambers is because that was another area or an avenue for me to go out and network with other people and build relationships and partnerships.
Yeah. What do you think for that person who doesn't have any idea of what PR is, and media, at least mainstream media and creative outlets, TV shows, make it sound like the person that's running around like preventing people from getting arrested and putting out fires all day long? What do you think the biggest misconception is about the PR industry?
Yeah, well, I think also, and aside from crisis communications, which is what you described, a lot of times it's, and I have it in one of my like introductory discovery call presentations. People picture red carpet. They picture you're ushering your client down this lovely red carpet, and you're kind of standing in the background while they answer questions, and it's not so glamorous as you think it might be. It's really about storytelling, and branding is the foundation of perception, but perception is what drives business success. So you can't have market penetration with marketing alone, marketing, branding, and advertising. You have to have PR. You have to have that storytelling, that authenticity behind your brand. It's what builds your brand and what tells the story behind your brand. And that's important, like I said, to consumers, because they want to know that you're not just that ad. What does your company stand for?
Yeah, I think it was Harvard Business School a couple of years ago coined the term trust recession. That right now we're in a trust recession.
There you go.
And I think it's it definitely has shown up in sales in my clients and some of the other industries that we both interact with, where between AI, between the strategies of just DM everybody that you know until somebody buys your stuff, like our guards are so high up, wondering whether something's real and wondering whether somebody's authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when do you think is too early to start talking about a PR strategy with a business?
I think you can start talking about it from the very beginning. But I mean, you need to have your concept, your brand, everything kind of in the works, established the business already, meaning, you've got your business license, you've got your sales channels or your service channels lined up, like things are in play and you're about to launch. That's when you want to start engaging in public relations, whether you're bringing somebody in-house or whether you're engaging with an agency. Those are the times really when it's kind of pre-launch, I would say. So it really depends on the business and how long something takes to happen. But, like if you're building a brick and mortar business, let's say, or if it's not in a physical location, but it's a service, that might be a shorter time frame. But really from the beginning, you want to start talking to somebody. I have a potential client right now that I've been talking to that was still finding a distributor, was still in the manufacturing process. But what I told them was, wait until you're a little bit farther down the line. You don't need us yet. You need to have all of these things established first. Then come back to us, but we'll help guide you through that process. But from the beginning is good. But even if you've never had PR before, it's been 10, 20 years. We have clients that come to us all the time with that. Hey, we've been around for 15 years. We've never had PR. Nobody knows who we are. Can you help us? So, and that's because we firmly believe too, that PR does not work by itself. So, and neither does, advertising.
Right.
And so we are an integrated marketing company. We believe that way. Our foundation is PR. That's our expertise, but we offer other services as well. And we also work in tandem with companies that already have those services. So if you already have social media, and if you already have an advertising budget and you're already doing those things, we come in complementary. But what we don't do is work in a silo. We work hand in hand with our clients to make sure that all of those verticals are working together, because it's important for all of your branding, your PR, your marketing, everything to be consistent. Messages to be consistent throughout what you're putting out to the public.
Yeah. So a lot of times what I see in business owners is they think, I've got this brilliant idea. They open their business for a reason that really is not tied to the business itself. They think it's going to bring them freedom. They think it's going to bring them some sort of internal result, which causes them confusion in not knowing what their brand actually is, what their story is, where they want to go. How do you adjust? Like, do you feel like a brand needs to have everything figured out in the direction they want to go, or is PR helpful in the discovery process?
Yeah, definitely helpful in the discovery process. I mean, when we start, either when it's in what we call our discovery phase with a potential client, when we're asking, they're getting to know us, we're getting to know their business, we ask a ton of questions, just question after question after question, because we're trying to get to the bottom of, why the story, why they started the business, where it's coming from. Is it a passion, or are they just looking for the next thing to make money? But really, what's driving them? And then that's where all the strategy comes from, is building that. And then it's both that. We ask a lot of questions in the discovery, and then once they become a client too, it's even more digging into the origin story of the company, because that's how we tell their story to the media, who then tells it to the public. So we have to convince the media that it's something that their audience will care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And caring is so important. I mean, I can think of the brands that I am stupid loyal to. And it's all because they did something for me or with me or somebody that I know that was just almost unheard of. Like, the one that comes up all the time is Chewy. Are you familiar?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So for me, like, when my dog passed away and I had just gotten a dog food package delivered and I wanted to return it, they were like, we can't take it back because of safety issues. Donate it to a local animal shelter. And then they credited 100% of the bag. And that would have been enough. That would have been what I would have expected a company to do. But then 30 days later, I got a condolences card in the mail. And it's like that step that I see stories going around of people saying, hey, this condolences card came in the mail. And I know it's a strategy from their side, but it's also because somebody in the company cares, or else it wouldn't be a strategy.
Right.
And those are the stories that kind of make their way around like wildfire, that I think having a PR side to blast it out even more would be incredible.
Yeah, it's important to, I mean, they cared.
Yeah.
They showed that they cared. They went the extra step. And that's, you have to be that kind of company first.
Yeah.
We can tell that story, but, that story is also going to go, not necessarily viral, but that is going to be word of mouth as well. And so, it's important to just be authentic no matter what you're selling and what you're doing.
What is your favorite thing about what you get to do?
My favorite, seeing the wins. Seeing the wins is fun. Seeing my team get really excited about something that they're working on and landing some big pieces of coverage, or when we have an event for a client and the amount of attention or engagement. You came to one of our recent events. That was an event for a new addiction recovery hospital that opened in Henderson. That client came to us from New Jersey. They were expanding here to Las Vegas. They had never worked in this market before, but they knew the city officials, county officials, things that they had to build what they were building, but they didn't know the community. And so that they really wanted an agency that was embedded in the community and knew. And so I was nervous that we have a track record of being able to get, pretty high profile people to come to our events, elected officials and media, of course, and have people show up. But the amount of people that did show up for that event blew me away too. And that was the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm so excited that, we got Gina Titus to show up, Congresswoman Gina Titus. And we got, the Henderson city officials, the whole fire department was there. I mean, those are the moments where I'm like, oh, we killed it. This is great. Like I'm happy with and of course the client was thrilled too. So those moments where I see my team excel and where I can be happy for the client and that we achieved those results, that's what makes me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's noticeably different. Like, as somebody who, as an ambassador for the chamber, goes to a ton of ribbon cuttings, it's noticeably different when you have a strategy involved. And this is one of the things that I always talk to my clients about is from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment that you go to bed, when we are operating on full cylinder and we're being 100% intentional, we know with everything that's on our calendar where that's going and the reason that we have it on our calendar. There is no just showing up and winging it. We're not robots, so nobody's perfect, right? And there's a lot of stuff we find ourselves in routines, and we get to snap ourselves out of that. Ribbon cuttings, though, or any event that you're bringing people into your business, I see so many business owners that are like, I'm going to have the ribbon cutting, and then show up and they don't collect any contact information. They don't have a strategy for what they want to do with people who show up. They don't have a strategy for how they want people to feel or what they want them to take away from the event. And this is something that I feel like, I think about from a coaching perspective, and you probably think about on a much higher level from a PR perspective of from the moment they get here to the moment they leave. What do we want them to feel, experience, see, and what do we want them to do afterwards? Is that a pretty fair assumption of what
Of course.
you think?
Yeah. It's a full plan of, and that event is just a part of our strategy. So, because it's something that we had been building for 4 months. So we were already getting media coverage and creating awareness for that business for the months leading up to that. And that was kind of the end kind of celebration, but another chance for us to earn even more, awareness about what was happening. Not just with media, but from a community perspective as well. So yeah, everything is thought about. Who do we want there? It's not just bodies and seats, but the important people who need to know about this resource now are here. So the elected officials that, care about mental health and addiction. I talked about the city officials, community members, potential partners, because they are looking to partner with other hospitals and healthcare facilities throughout Las Vegas and throughout Southern Nevada region. So, we're not just pitching media. We're actually reaching out to, healthcare professionals and executives on, hey, can you please come to this event, because we think it's important for you and we want to build these partnerships for our clients. So there's so many things that goes into planning that. I mean, down to the food and the step and repeats and the stage and who's, and making sure too that the client is giving the right speeches too. Yeah. Like we tell them what you need to include in your speech, what you need to say, because questions that we anticipate are going to be asked need to be answered in what you're, in your speech. What you're talking about. And then the tours of the facility too. We want to make sure everybody sees what you're doing, bring them in. How do we time those the right way with only 2 hours of an event? And so
I'm exhausted,
there's so much pre-planning that goes into all of those things. So yeah.
It's true though, from a conference perspective, because I go to a ton of conferences. That's one of the things also is everybody's like, this went off without a hitch. And I know the conference organizers and they're like, oh my God, so much stuff went wrong. Right. And it's just that understanding of the pivot and adjust and the plan and all of it. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes business owners make, both from just a PR side, but also a relationship building side, is they look at who are the people that might buy my stuff. And I see this in networking all the time, where people show up at a networking event and they throw out cards and like spaghetti at a wall and they hope something sticks, and then they put it on the other person to call them. The value add of putting an event like what you're talking about together and thinking about not only who might be a potential client for my business, but who knows potential clients for my business. And let's put that together is a completely underused strategy.
Yeah, we do. So I not only do that for my business, but I put that on our discovery and our sales, as though that is one of our specialties, is collaborating businesses with each other, or nonprofits to businesses as well, to create partnerships. But yeah, the first thing I did was join the chambers when I opened up my business, and I went up and down the aisles of the first Henderson Chamber Expo that happened like a month after I became a member,
and looked around and went, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
I walked up and down the aisles by myself and introduced myself to, companies that I thought either looked like they'd be interesting to represent from a PR standpoint, or ones that I could collaborate with. So that same day I met our very first, for-profit client, who's still a client to this day. And I met a videographer who's still, a partner of ours. But what I realized too was, to your point, was a few years later, I had built some relationships within the chamber, fellow chamber members and people who worked for the chamber. But I felt like there was something more. Like, how could I really be building better relationships here? We became sponsors that year. I think it was 2020 or 2021, I think it was right after the pandemic. And I asked a fellow sponsor, how do you maximize your sponsorship? Like, how do you really, see the value in the money that you put out there? Like, I don't want to just, have my logo on a banner. Like, what are you doing to drive business success with this sponsorship? And he was, and I'll give him credit to Dave Sorrow, who owns Promo Direct. He took me under his wing and said, you know what, I'm going to introduce you to some people because I feel like I can give you some advice, but other people can give you some advice too. He introduced me to several other people about how their involvement in the chambers, how they build relationships and what they do. And they gave me so much perspective about, I was doing it all wrong. I was one of those people who would show up and hand out a business card and expect something to happen from that. But what it came down to is really building relationships with people who, and what also helped me too was the following year, I entered leadership. I submitted an application for leadership. I did Leadership Henderson, class of 23, so entered it in 2022. And I went into it thinking, because this was what I was kind of taught by, previous mentors, is that why bother talking to somebody if you don't feel that they're going to help you with your business, right? If it's something that's like, I'm going to go talk to like an insurance broker or something, what are they going to do for me? Or if it was somebody who, like a police officer, let's say, what's a police officer going to help me? Like, he's in a totally different field. That might not work for me or whatever, right? But what you don't understand is that not only is this market so small, but building relationships, because everybody knows somebody else in some other field, their neighbor, their brother, their wife, their people. Whatever, they're people, right? And so we remember when one of the exercises in Leadership Henderson, when you're done with your retreat, at the end of the retreat, you enter the retreat not knowing who anybody is. You might recognize like one or two people because you've seen them around, but everybody else, you're like, I have no idea who these people are, and I don't know what they do for a living. And so you get to know the people without knowing what they do for a living until the end. And you'll stand up and everybody guesses, oh, they do this, they do that, and half the people are wrong or, way off. Some people are kind of close. But what I found was that, through that whole 8-month process was that I became friends with people that I never thought could help, me, or I could help them in their business or their career. And it's different. It's just all about the relationships that I've built. And so it's referrals through the network of people who know you authentically.
Yeah. I heard somebody say on a podcast years ago when I was interviewing, they were in marketing. And I said, I asked them, what do you think the biggest pitfall is when people are growing their business? And he says, you have to go into every relationship with the intention of building a relationship and being of service. And he said, and in my head, I'm like, yeah, but like nobody builds a business that way. And he's like, you can have an objective. You can build a relationship with an objective of a goal, but the intention and what drives that has to be to show up of service for the other person.
Yep.
And that helped reframe everything in my mind, is I can connect and say, it'd be really cool if this person ends up being a referral partner or a client. But all of my actions during that relationship have to be for nothing more than service and relationship building. Yeah. If I don't get that objective, the relationship is still worth building. And I think for so many people who are taught, open your business, focus on your P&L, build your strategy around sales, the relationship part, which drives all of those things, gets left behind. So let's dig into this strategy for just a minute. So there's one of the favorite things that my clients will say to me is, I really hope this works out. And my response is always, hope's not a strategy. What's the strategy for making this happen? So this idea of, I'm going to get up, I'm going to give it my all, I'm going to try the hardest that I can. And in the meantime, they have no direction. They're relying on hope, both in life and business. So for the business owners that are out there that are juggling all the plates of life, business, marketing, sales, communication, all the things. What's the biggest strategy tip that you can give them to rein everything in and build a plan?
Yeah, just having a plan. Starting with having a plan. Start with, what's your end goal and go backwards from there. It's a great way to build a plan. What's the ultimate goal? And then how do I get from A to B? But also bringing in help, there's people you can rely on. We're talking about collaboration. We're talking about building relationships. Who's in your network that can help guide you?
Oh, we're supposed to ask for help?
Right? Exactly.
Shit, that's what I've been doing wrong.
You're on an island by yourself. You have people around you. You have friends, you have family, you have fellow chamber members, you have people who you can ask for help. Look for someone who you see as a model for success. Pick their brain, sit down with them. When I started my business, I went around and I had met, it's very common in PR to where you will, so let's say, work for like a mid-size agency, right? And then you'll kind of maybe get a little bit of burnout, or you'll just figure, I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
And so then you'll go off and start your own thing by yourself. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do? Yeah. So I sat down, and I've had people do this with me after, and I've been able to reciprocate and do the same thing. Or sorry, I should say pay it forward. To where, I sat down with the 5 or so, 3 or 4 or 5 people who I knew who had done the same thing. They worked either alongside me at my old agency, and then they went ahead and started their own solo business that had blossomed into, like basically what my size of my business is now. And I said, how do you do this? And what do you, how do you accept payment? And what do you do for it? I just asked them so many questions about how they ran their business. And then I took kind of what worked for me, because everybody gave me kind of different pointers and different ideas of how it worked for them, but you have to make sure it fits for you. Right. And then, so those are the things that's how I started. Really.
I love that.
It was just, and I didn't really necessarily have a plan for growth.
I was surviving.
It was literally like, how do I run my business?
Yeah.
And then the strategy on, I should say, growth or sustainability happened much later. That happened just in the past couple of years.
I think that's important because people try to grow before they've learned how to walk, right?
Yeah.
They think about going national or international, and they don't even have a sales system yet. So I think that's an important note. If people want to follow up and continue this conversation, because I feel like you and I could talk forever, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, they can look us up on GYCVegas.com, or we're at GYC Vegas on Instagram, on X, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. That's where we have information on our podcast as well, which airs on all of the podcast streaming platforms.
Perfect. And I know we briefly mentioned that in the intro. Tell me a little bit about what somebody might come to listen to your podcast for. What might they expect to hear or learn or gain through the podcast?
So I started the podcast purely for, branding and awareness for our business too. It was another avenue for us. So what we use, a marketing company promoting themselves, how do you do that, right? And so, again, I'm not the firm believer in, advertising works by itself or PR works by itself, but we can't really get PR on ourselves.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work that way. So other than, earning awards and things like that. So it was an avenue that I had a lot of other mentors tell me, hey, you should start a podcast. I'm like, who's going to listen to it?
I thought the same thing.
I think we had like 4 listeners our first episode. But to me, it wasn't about the listeners. It was about using it as a tool for not only just to promote our business. And we don't talk about PR. I mean, who wants to listen to an hour-long podcast about PR? Just like for you, you're not going to do an hour-long podcast on, it's coaching and, business development and things. And so what I thought is, well, who am I going to interview? And I said, I have met so many wonderful people through my chamber relationships. I've met, CEOs to, people who've just started up their business, or nonprofit leaders, civic leaders, elected officials. I'd like to talk to those people because, again, we're not just what we do for a living.
Yes.
Just like that whole leadership exercise. That's not who you are. Mm-hmm. You are a robust person with, lots of different relationships. You have beliefs. You have, you have family and friends that care about you, and you have special interests besides what you do for a living. I off-road and I go scuba diving, and a lot of people don't know that. Sometimes they do, because I talk a lot about those things. But anyway, you know, I wanted to get behind who the people are, what led them in their career to where they are today. But then what are some of the fun things about, like, you know, their passions, or where they like to, you know, what they like to do in their free time, as well as, you know, that background. And so our podcast is really about giving people a place to share their stories and talk about, you know, how they achieved their level of success, and then, you know, who they are behind their paycheck.
I love that, because before this podcast was rebranded, because it originally started as a passion project, and then my business opened, and then it got rebranded. It was called More Than Corporate before that, for that same reason. Like, I saw so many people tying their identity to what they did for a living. And then that thing, either they switched careers or something took that away, and they're like, who the hell am I? And so it was this idea of recentering people to all the things they are besides their professional titles.
And that's a good point too. I always ask that, is one of the questions I ask in the podcast is, if you could give a piece of advice to anybody starting out in their career or pivoting careers right now, what would you say to that person? And so that's what I think is important, is exploring just who you are as an individual, because you could change careers. I could decide tomorrow, you know, hey, I'm over PR. Let me just go do something else that I enjoy. Maybe I want to go be a scuba diving instructor. Maybe I want to do, you know, take people on, you know, off-road adventures, but whatever that might look like. So I'm not a PR person anymore. I'm that now.
But we're the first generation where that was acceptable.
True. Yeah.
Because, like, you talk about our parents, like, they didn't change careers.
No. Yeah.
They had 60-year careers at the same place. So
my dad did, but that was because he had an accident at work and he was forced to change careers. But he's the only person I knew out of my generation. Everybody was you're just solid. Sit in and you there till you retire.
We don't talk about fulfillment. That has nothing to do with work.
No, like, it's just you're earning a paycheck. That's it.
Absolutely. All right, well, last thing before we wrap up.
Okay.
The guest before you left you a question, and you get to do the same for the guest after you. So your question: if you could have lunch with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
I think it would be my grandmother, my nonna. She passed away about 5 years ago, and she was someone in my life that, growing up, there was a little bit of distance in terms of geography. Just, you know, the rest of our family all lived kind of in one little area, and we lived about an hour away. So they would see her all the time, in and out, you know, my cousins and everything. And I would only see her, like, maybe, I don't know, once a month or so forth. And then there were 6 years of my childhood, a chunk, where we didn't even live in the same state. And so I felt like I missed a lot of time, right? And then fast forward, when we decided to move to Las Vegas, we ended up moving next door to my grandparents. And we lived next door to them for 14 years. And we were so blessed to have that time next door to them. They helped me raise my kids in the early years, because I was working for a PR agency and I was a busy working mom. And so I needed help kind of babysitting here and there. But I would like to have lunch with her, because a couple of years ago, I took a trip to Italy after she passed away, and I went to the town where my mom was born, the town where my grandparents were born, and I got really in touch with my roots. And I came back from that trip and said, I'm going to speak fluent Italian. Ooh. I want to learn how to be fluent. And so I've been taking lessons since then. And I would love to be able to speak to her and show her what I've learned, because I know she'd be really proud. And
that's awesome. What a good answer. What a good answer. Gina, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we've covered a wide range of topics, and I just love the way you look at business from a PR standpoint. It's super inspiring. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Amber. Appreciate it.
Of course.